This is your tech news briefing for Wednesday, August 17th. I'm Zoe Thomas for the Wall Street Journal. Have you ever typed your name into a search engine? If so, you might have come up with your social media profiles or personal websites. Or maybe you saw something a bit more unnerving: your email, phone number, or even your home address. This can be upsetting. It can feel like a violation of privacy. But it can also be harmful, depending on who finds that information and how they use it. So what are the possible ramifications of having your personal data be public? And how can you get that information taken down? Joining us to discuss this is our reporter, Maddie Ellis. Thanks for joining us, Maddie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Let's start with some basics. Where is this information, like your home address and phone, being listed in the first place? Why would anybody want to put it up?
So the best way to think about this is think of a phone book, or think of these public records that before you could access, anyone could access. People actually wanted to be in the phone book. It was a way to connect with friends, find old friends, give them a call. But because it wasn't digitized, you had to be really intentional about actively using those sources. Other examples are going to county offices and requesting public records. So there is all this public information that is relatively personal, such as your home address, your phone number. All of these are recorded on utility bills, property taxes. This all falls under the domain of a public record. What happens when this is digitized is that the barrier to accessing it goes way down. So it can just turn into a Google search away. So what these sites, like think of white pages, do, for example, is they aggregate all this information from public records. So it is fair game, it's all public, but they list it online and make it available to be bought by anyone.
This can potentially lead to some real dangerous scenarios. Can you tell us a little bit about those? Maybe give us some examples?
Yes, so the biggest example would be the case of doxing, which we see more and more cases of that every day, often against politicians, journalists, but it can happen to everyday people. And what doxing consists of is when your personal information, largely your home address, your phone number, often as well, because of the way these sites operate, the same personal information of family members, is posted publicly on sites like social media with the intent to harass, threat, and get other people to threaten and harass that user again. So some notable examples of this is the recent assassination attempt against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. The person who made that attempt admitted to finding that information just on the internet. So that's a really extreme example. But I also spoke with people who, well, they never faced anyone physically threatening them, but they did have their home address, pictures of their apartments and their buildings posted online, just to create that paranoia and that fear that some danger might happen. And it gets really scary when they involve family members. That's what sources reported that to me as well.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the steps then that you can take if you want to get your personal information down. What is the first thing you should do?
The first step is to assess your immediate safety. That's the number one priority. But if you are doing this proactively, one of the first things someone trying to intimidate you might do is just look it up in Google. And Google actually has tools to hide search results that contain personal information. It's a new tool. They just expanded what is eligible to be hidden in Google search results to include personal information, contact information, address, phone number, all of that. And in the coming months, Google said they're going to roll out a tool to make it even easier. So right now you have to go to Google, you have to fill out a form, basically letting them know, is this being used for doxing intent? What information do you want listed? What's the URL that you want hidden from the search results, and why? But in the coming months, there's going to be 3 little dots next to the posting, and you can click it. It's an About This result page, and there will be an option there to request removal. So it really expedites the process.
It seems like Google has a lot of leeway, though, here. I mean, do they ever reject these requests?
Yes. So some things that Google said they will take into consideration are, is this search result, so is this URL contributing to just the free exchange of public information? So some examples of times that they might reject requests to hide a search result are if it's information that comes from news coverage. That's an example of something that they likely would not honor, as well as if it comes from an official government source.
Okay, what about web pages that you mentioned before, like white pages, if you want to get it taken off of there, not just showing up in search?
Absolutely. So that gets into the second thing. So you can hide search results in Google. If you manage to do that successfully, it doesn't actually remove the content from the actual URL. So people are able to access it other ways, other search engines, if they know the URL, they look it up directly. So what you have to do then is contact the actual owner of the site. And some quick tools to do that are potentially to use the database Whois, which can give you some quick contact information, but specifically for these data broker sites. So the big ones mentioned, White Pages, Spokeo, Radaris. These are sites that often have opt-out requests. The tricky part can be finding these opt-out requests. So what I recommend doing is typing in the name of the data broker and then opt-out. That should get you closer to the actual form. But essentially what you do is each database is a little different, but basically usually they'll ask for the URL of your listing. So you'll need to find the location of your personal information on their site, save that URL, submit that URL to them. And it's usually just a few steps to say, like, I would like to opt out from having my information public.
What about for people who just don't have the time to go to all of these individual sites and put in request forms? I mean, it seems like a lot of work to get something that feels like yours off of places you don't want it.
It is a lot of work, and it is a lifelong effort of work. So there are third-party services that offer to do this for you. So one, I spoke with the co-founder of Delete Me, and that service, it's more than $100 a month, but what it does is they make these requests on behalf of the user. So essentially all you do is give Delete Me your personal information. You give it to them so they know what to look for, but the Delete Me founder assured that what they use proxy email addresses, proxy information to reach out to these sites, make these opt-out requests on behalf of the customer without disclosing any more information than needed. There's also a program from Norton LifeLock that does this. So there are third-party services out there.
All right, that's our reporter, Maddie Ellis. Thanks so much for joining us, Maddie.
Thank you.
And that's it for today's Tech News Briefing. If you want more tech stories, check out our website, WSJ.com. And if you like our show, please rate and review it. You can do that wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Zoe Thomas for the Wall Street Journal. Thanks for listening.